everybody, and welcome to our live show, a bonus show for you guys. I mean, last week, Mr. Hooley, by the way, before I even start anything, he's right there.
Woo-hoo.
Hello, Mr. Hooley, welcome back.
Do you see this smile?
It's very nice to see you back on the show. It really is. Last week, WCCS Fest. I mean, Mr. Hooley was on the move, and it was a great week. And we had 9 shows that dropped last week, which was incredible. And you know, you might be feeling a bit withdrawn this week of not having so much Writing Community Chat show. So we have another bonus show for you today, and that is with the author E.G. Radcliff, who is the author of correct me if I'm wrong here, Hidden King. The Hidden
King, but really exciting news today, and this is why this bonus show is happening, because The Last Prince, E.G. Radcliffe's latest novel, is actually out today, so you can get it today, and that's why she's here to chat with us. Indeed, so this is going to be great.
So I'm just commenting. By the way, if you're watching, you can chat. There's a few of you already commenting in there, and one of my comments was filtered. It wasn't offensive, I promise you, and they could come out later. But you can chat with us directly, and we can ask questions. So if you've got any questions for Miss Radcliffe, please send them in. And without any further ado, as they say, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Fantastic. It's this is a great setup now, and it's great to see Mr. Hooley, and it's also great to see you on the show. So thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Excellent.
It's an absolute pleasure. So Writing Community Chat show fans may be aware that we did read and review The Hidden King, which is the first in this series. And today, it's very exciting for you, The Last Prince came out. So let's start there, because it's absolutely fantastic news. Not debut, second in the sequel.
Second in the sequel, Chris.
Yeah.
You're on fire.
You can tell I've not done this for a while.
Do you know what? Before we do start this, though, because we normally have a beer book. Oh, you started me off now. A beer token book promotion sponsor for the show, but we didn't have one in time, and that's partly my fault that I didn't advertise this early enough. So what I'm going to do, I do have my beer, as always, and I do have my trusted dinosaur to open my beer. But what I'm going to do, as you know, E.G. Radcliffe, and please excuse me, what does E stand for? And I know I've had this conversation before.
Just E.G. is fine, if you don't mind.
That's absolutely fine.
I love that.
Mysterious.
Yeah, well, my dad called me G, so I feel like I should just stick to the letter thing.
Perfectly fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put your new book as The Last Prince. Oh, that's for later. Whoa. Where have I put
Spoilers.
it? Yes. Oh, do you know what? I'll just put it up in the top corner, because we can put the book cover up there. So your book cover is up in the top corner, and we'll speak about that in depth in a minute. So thank you for this, and we will use your book to sponsor there. And Justin Warren on the Twitter, on the comments, said he's very excited. So go on, Chris. If you lead off with the questions, I'll open this beer.
Yeah, so just tell us a little bit about The Last Prince and where you sort of started the story from where it left off. That'd be really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So The Hidden King follows Aid. Now, in the very beginning of that book, we meet Aid's partner, Ninian. The Last Prince is more of a prequel, really. So it actually follows Ninian's story up until the beginning of The Hidden King.
Nice.
Sort of following the themes of The Hidden King, it's a very character-driven novel. There's not any, evil overlords or giant grizzled monsters or anything. But at the same time, there is that aspect of fae magic and the sort of unknown, while also really diving into the character interactions as the main propellant for the plot.
So what made you decide to go sort of backwards then instead of forwards with Aid's story?
Well, this is it's a good question, because if you think about it, this series has the most insane book scheduling. It goes first book, prequel, and then the sequel will come out next year. The reason for that was Aid is sort of the character that ties everything together. So it only made sense to start with his story. It wouldn't really feel right to move on to the next book, which will be Ronan's story, before addressing what brought everything to this point, which would be Ninian's story, Ninian being Aid's partner. So it felt right to go back before forwards, because all the events in The Last Prince will sort of inform what we see going forward.
So for those who don't know, Ninian's character He's very, how do I describe it? He's very boisterous and very sort of exciting at the beginning of The Hidden King. And he seems to be where a lot of the action is. Was this book very different for you to write because you were dealing with a different sort of character in that sense?
It was a bit of a challenge because Ninian is a very dynamic character. He changes a lot throughout this entire, the series. So the Ninian that we see at the beginning of The Hidden King is not the same Ninian character-wise that I was writing at the beginning of The Last Prince, because The Last Prince just sort of documents how he develops into the character that we meet in The Hidden King. So yes, it was a challenge. I did like it a lot, I confess. It was a lot of fun, but yeah, it was tricky.
Can we take it back to way back when you started writing? Where did that inspiration come from, and what made you want to get into this world of becoming an author?
It's a funny story.
We love those.
Right. So it was a Sunday morning. I woke up at about 11 o'clock, which is later than usual, but that's fine. And I had the most insane dream. And I had to write it down because as soon as you dream something, you forget it in like a day. So I ran downstairs. I made a bowl of spaghetti, forgot to microwave it, ate it cold at 11 in the morning. And I literally laid on my floor and wrote about 40 pages that very first day just to get it on paper. It was a complete disaster. It was a mess. The plot was just stringy and weird. And I had written 40 pages in a day, so it wasn't exactly top quality work. But after I sort of got past that, starting can be the hardest part. After I got past that, it was a lot easier to just keep building on it and then go back and fix all the nonsense that I'd begun with. So I think go ahead.
Had you had any experience at all with writing before you just suddenly started writing that down?
I mean, I'd always enjoyed it. I had never had experience writing something so long, which is probably where some of my initial pacing problems came from that, got repaired through rounds of editing. I'd say it was definitely a learning experience, which is, I hope I never stop learning. That'd be great.
Well, as you mentioned, that your pace was perhaps an issue to start with. I picked a couple of comments off your website and some of the reviews, and one of those would say they definitely recommend the book, but the pace of the story was really good. So with that in mind, that's obviously something you've worked on a lot throughout your work, and it's improved, especially for someone that's listening, maybe new in the game. What does that sort of mean to improve on your pacing, and how can that come across in a book?
Well, the pacing of the story is one of the hardest things to sort of grab onto. It's not a solid thing at all. It's so feeling based, But I'm sure that we've all had the experience where we're reading something and something just sort of pops out of the blue and we're like, that does not feel like it was precedented at all. So the pacing is just sort of like, you have to make sure that everything is adequately foreshadowed, that everything just makes sense to be happening when it's happening. My main problem in my first draft of The Hidden King was that I drew out everything way too long. I would have these enormous scenes for things that weren't actually that plot important. So it made it feel like I was putting more emphasis on it than I should have. A lot of the editing was just trimming things down to make sure that, hey, the story's in there somewhere, but let's make sure that that's what I'm actually focusing on.
So tell us a little bit more about this dream, because I'm really excited about that. Was it part of the book, or was it the whole idea that came in the dream? Or
it was actually just the characters and the setting, which is the funniest thing, because the dream didn't have a plot. It was just a mess, but it was the characters and exactly who they were, what they looked like, what their names were, and the setting, which was this sort of divided world of disgusting lower town city and shining beacon on a hill, white city sort of thing. And that was what I had to work with. It was just very intriguing to me. I was like, I don't know these people. I don't know where they came from, but I'd love to play with them. So, since I had that, it was just, I couldn't give it up.
It's an interesting way of coming up with ideas, isn't it? And have you adapted that since that? It's obviously a big moment in your time as an author, but have you thought maybe I'll keep a pen and paper next to the bed just in case I wake up and have that thought there?
Definitely. I used to keep a journal next to the bed. Well, I still do, but it turns out that I'm completely dysfunctional as soon as I wake up. So I can, like, write it down. So I ended up, I would just text my friend. I have a friend who's awake I don't think he sleeps. So I would just text him every time I had a dream. And he would help me like parse through the completely disjointed nonsense that I would send him. And then I would write that down.
Yeah.
That is a great friend to have. Like,
Oh,
because I
yeah.
know writers have a lot of ideas, so I should imagine that's a lot of text.
It's a lot of text.
Well, recently, apparently, I've been waking up throughout the night randomly and just sitting up and doing weird stuff and going back to sleep. So perhaps I need to be prodded at that point. Say, write something down, because there's a lot going on when I wake up and I'm like taking things off the wall and all sorts by all accounts.
Yeah.
That's a recent sort of
That sounds like
development.
a different story, Chris.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. So maybe there's imagination happening in that time, and I need to get that on paper. Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go for
I'd
it.
love you to film your sleeping, sort of mid-sleep, weird storytelling moments. I'd watch that all day.
Yeah, there's a lot of those, but not on any sort of video feed. So unlucky. Amazing.
Ah.
So just having a look at some more of these comments and reviews that we've picked up here. This comes up quite a lot in your reviews. Has a strong grasp on characterization. Do you sort of agree with that comment? And if so, do you work on that at all, or is that something that's more natural to you as a writer?
I think, well, it's definitely something I work on, but it's also something that I think I just grasp.
Okay.
So delivering it is definitely difficult, but when I'm with people, I'm always watching those people and observing constantly. So I think that most of the strong grasp on characterization is just the fact that when I'm in a group situation, I'm watching a lot more than I'm talking.
Yeah.
So, you learn a lot from observations that just sort of sneaks into the writing. So I'm glad that people think I have a strong grasp on characterization. It is definitely something I try, but I'm flattered.
So are you an author that has been in this situation where you sat in, say, the classic coffee shop window with your laptop, just watching the world go by? Is that something you've actually done? Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually a library, not a coffee shop, because
Okay.
if I have food, my attention's on the food. And they don't seem to like it very much when I eat in the library, so that's pretty safe.
Well, talking about that recently, me and Chris, have you got a snack that you write with? I mean, a lot of writers have a ritual when they sit down, but some people have snacks. Do you have snacks when you go there?
Yeah, so when I'm actually writing, I usually have Dr. Pepper, Diet Dr. Pepper. Don't know why. Still can't describe exactly what that weird stuff tastes like, but it's good. But then if I'm brainstorming, it's lime tortilla chips and peach peace tea.
Wow.
It's not good for me at all, and I try not to eat it very much. But I don't know, really just gets those brain juices flowing.
It's amazing.
Nice.
So many writers have like almost a ritual to how they write, and it becomes sort of superstition then. I've listened to the same playlist I've listened to for way too long, and I know every single song back to back in there, but still I listen to it, and that's my ritual. And Chris, I'm sure you've got some as well.
Yeah. I've recently had to change my ritual, obviously, with moving house, and I thought, I'll write in the loft. And because it's all boarded out and really, really quite nice. And I thought, it's a bit dark up here, but there's a light. And I went in the loft yesterday morning and I looked to the right and there was a dead bird. And I was like, oh God, that's not a good omen. Maybe not right in this loft. So yeah, I have to get rid of that.
Yeah.
But writing in the dark can be kind of nice. I don't know. I personally sort of like the glow of my laptop screen being the only thing I can see, because it really blocks out the rest of the distractions.
Yeah.
Justin said he eats popcorn, which is kind of nice to know. That's very much an entertainment snack. And
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, Twinkle Star tea and music.
Tea's good.
Is that like a cup of tea, Twinkle Star? And just to clarify, are you British? And that would make more sense to us. And if you're not, then do you make tea in a microwave the wrong way? Let's get down to that.
Microwave. Pretty well American, and I don't make tea in a microwave.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. And there's one more comment I've pulled off the.
I love it when you pull comments off.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's all right. You're allowed to laugh at that. It wasn't an intended joke.
So there's one more. Okay. So a lot of the comments go back to this, and a strong focus on family and relationships. You've obviously mentioned that you're kind of you like to watch people and take in sort of real life. Is this sort of a reflection of that, and is it just something you have in your personal life? Is a strong connection there that you like to relay in your stories?
Yeah, for sure. Found family is a trope that I'm particularly fond of. And I just think there's a lot of ways to do it interestingly. There you go. I know words. So when I'm focusing on the character relationships and really delving into like how each character connects with every other character, that sort of found family makes itself known a little bit more, because when you have a lot of characters who are well connected, and especially when they don't have traditional family dynamics, you know, that just sort of happens. They bound together, and I don't know. I really like exploring the different dynamics that can bring up.
So have you kind of done that again in a different way in the Last Prince? Because in the Hidden King, obviously, Aid is quite fortunate to meet a really nice family in that sense, like a how would you describe it? You just said it, and I can't remember what you just said. The secondary family type thing, the found families. That's it. So he's quite fortunate, without giving it away. Obviously, his circumstances do require somebody to be really sort of quite generous to him in that first story. So, how have you managed to play with that in the Last Prince?
In the Last Prince, Ninian starts alone. Very alone in pretty much every sense of the word. In that, you know, even if he's in a crowded place, he is in his mind isolated. So connecting with Aid and then later Ronan, it's a growth experience as much as it is a human connection experience. And he has to break down a lot of his personal walls in order to allow himself to make those connections that he really does need. So yeah, I think with the Hidden King, it was a little bit easier, I guess, because quite frankly, Aid was in a better mental place than Ninian was for like the entirety of the Last Prince. But yeah,
because I was going to say then, in the Hidden King, you've already set the foundations for the story and as to what happened. So how did you find that challenge as a writer, knowing, well, hang on a minute, I kind of already know what's going to happen. How do I deal with this? And how do I present like plot twists or keep the reader's engagement? Like, how did you find that whole process?
Tricky. Especially, well, I don't want to give anything away, but especially given how the Hidden King opened, presenting the stakes for the Last Prince was a challenge, because I had to make sure that like you get involved with this character, and this character's arc still draws you forward, even when you kind of know what's going to happen. So to that end, it was difficult, but also, you know, again, I'm here for a challenge. I really enjoyed working through the ending. I'm actually not that good at endings, but figuring out how this one was going to end was, it startled me. I was literally sitting on the couch and I was writing, and I wrote the ending and I didn't realize I'd written it. So I kept writing and I was like, wait, back up. And I realized that I'd finished the arc, and it just kind of happened.
Nice.
We've got a question in from Twinkle Star, who's revealed her name now as Estelle. And she has said, what is your favorite part of the writing process?
Well, hi, Estelle. My favorite part of the writing process, unpopular opinion, I really like editing.
No.
I know nobody likes editing. I really like editing, because when you're writing, you're sort of, you know, obviously it's a lot of fun, but you're sort of powering through. You know, you have to get to the end. And there's no guarantee that the next step will actually be the correct next step. You know, you just sort of have to follow your gut. If you have a plan, I'm not much of a planner, but if you have a plan, you know, follow your outline. But there's just no way to really know that, like, yeah, I'm making the right next step. When you're editing, it's a guarantee that you are making your story better. You know, you're working with people, you're just sort of honing those details. And as a detail-oriented person, working with professional editors was just a blessing, and I enjoyed implementing that feedback.
So when you're, sorry, Chris, I was going to say, so when you're editing, do you ever get those moments where you're like, ooh, that's really good. I like that. Who wrote that? Did I write that?
Yeah. I do kind of live for that. Yeah.
I was just going to say that obviously this is a question aimed at your processes of writing, and this is your second book now. So has that changed much or at all since your first book?
My writing process?
Yeah.
Well, a lot, really. Since the first book was The Hidden King, was my first really long-term project. I didn't really know how to manage my work balance and how to prioritize, writing over anything else I had to do, which was part of the problem with my writing would be stringy and weird because I would go without writing for like weeks and then remember, oh yeah, I got to work on that. And then kind of pop back in. This one was a lot more goal driven. I was like, all right, got to knuckle down, 1,000 words a day. I can do this. And that was really helpful to me because then I knew that like, I will get to the end. I can even have a rough date for when I'll finish. And it's just a lot less up in the air.
So is 1,000 words a day, was that a target for you or is that something that you've used? Because that's quite a sustainable work rate, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It was nice because I can always write 1,000 words a day. No matter how busy I am, I can stay up at the end of the day for, an hour or so later or whatever. And I can usually write more than 1,000 words. So that just means that I always feel kind of successful, which is a good thing because being discouraged is one of the easiest ways to give yourself huge writer's block. So I just needed to get something that was pretty easy, something that I could usually beat, and, a little mini cheerleader for me every time I check that box.
How did you deal with like the sort of mindset of, oh, this is book 2, like people, because book 1 you're all really excited and you're like, woohoo, I can't wait for this to come out, and then book 2 comes out and you're like, oh, is it gonna be as good?
Yeah, I went through a long period at the beginning where I was kind of freaky about, oh God, people expect things from me. So I actually started The Last Prince 2 different times. I wrote about 40,000 words on each initial attempt. That's like half the book I have. So I wrote like an entire novel that I scrapped before I managed to just find my groove, because I just was so insecure about, I have to deliver. Like at first it was just something I could do, like nobody knew me. I didn't have any fans or anything. And then for the second book, I had to deliver. So I do actually think that it's a better work than The Hidden King, which is great. I'm very pleased about that because that means I'm still improving. But it was a bit stressful.
How have you gone about the whole process of? I'm doing exactly the same thing now. My second book comes out next week, so my sequel comes out next week. It's exciting, yeah, but I've got doubts that I probably would assume that you've also had, that a sequel is going to be successful if people have sort of read the first book. Was that an issue for you, and how did you address releasing a sequel as opposed to a sort of a first book in a series?
Yeah, so this one's a tricky one, I think, just because of the nature of my book order. Technically, you could read either of them first, and that meant that I could pitch it similarly to the first book.
Yeah.
However, it wasn't meant to be read first, and so I still had to find a way to pitch it as a sequel, or prequel rather. That was hard. I had to figure out like, okay, so I'm appealing to my original base, and that's amazing, but I would still like to find new people. That meant going back and actually pitching The Hidden King pretty hard, running ads, trying to figure out those darn Amazon algorithms.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to say, have you managed that? But I don't think anyone has. We've got a question from the community again, and it's quite a big one. Let's see if I can understand this. Transitioning from a character in one book to a different character in the same world, does that affect your character thoughts and dialogue?
Yeah, it does. The whole internal voice of that character and then the voice they actually speak in has to change, which basically means that I have to change, because when I'm writing a book with a one character focus, I really have to get into their head. It's, I think about it a lot when I'm doing whatever work I'm doing. It's always running in the back of my head. I draw a lot, but I really have to change my entire focus to understand this new character. It's it's a lot of fun, but it's also really easy to mess up and slip into old habits. Like, oh no, I'm writing like this other character, and you just got to go back and nope, wouldn't do that.
Is there a way to sort of prepare for that? Perhaps maybe, I know you said you don't really plan that much, but in that situation, would you take the characters and give them a bit of a story individually so you can separate them that way?
Yeah. So to sort of deal with that, I do a lot of little mini stories. I actually have a whole Google Drive full of just like little one shots from that character's perspective to just sort of explore how exactly they react in any situation. I also really like character sheets. I use World Anvil, which I'm pretty sure is like a D&D organization tool, but it works really well for story planning. And they have a lot of little nitpicky questions that you can answer about your character to really figure out where their head's at, and that's where your head has to be at.
Okay.
So that's a good tool.
Sounds great.
So we were introduced to quite a few characters in The Hidden King. Have you tried to include as many of them as possible in The Last Prince, or have you mainly stuck with the I'm going to say 2 to 3 main characters?
It's predominantly focused on the 2 to 3 main characters, but we do see a lot of new people. Now, the characters that we met in The Hidden King were mostly sort of AIDS people, and even though Aid and Ninian are partners, they don't share the same social circles. So Ninian's people are going to be different than Aid's people, and so we do meet a lot of new people from Ninian's side of life, which means a lot of gang people, a lot of people that you don't really want to hang around with, but that were a lot of fun to write because they suck.
If you're talking about these characters then being sucky characters, how do you like to sort of get their character or their darker side across? Any tips there?
Yeah, well, some of them are just the worst. So I'm not actually very good at being mean. I'm always like, oh my God, that's too much. I can't go that far. So I just have to, it's tricky. I end up texting that friend I was telling you about. Like, listen, I need you to help me be a bad person. So it's harder when it's an explicitly horrible person, but it's really fun when it's a person who you can actually sympathize with, but that does bad things. So there are characters. There's a character named Rory in The Last Prince who just does explicitly bad things, but a lot of people I've talked to really like him. And that's fun. That's a good time. That's some like complex characterization right there. And I don't know, that's a lot more fun for me than writing just nasty people.
I think that's a real key to writing a good, I guess, a villain that can be really relatable, but you can also hate at the same time, and it makes it almost hard to want to get rid of that character, even though they are the bad character in that story. So it's a fantastic way to approach that. Yeah, really like that.
It's a good time.
So you're going to keep any of these characters that you've created, these like the Rory characters, and bring them into further books, or give them their own spin-off? Or
I don't think I'm going to do any spin-offs. I mean, I probably will do little short stories and stuff that I'll probably release. If you subscribe to my website, every now and then you get little one-shots.
And what's the name of that website? Just,
egradcliff.com.
There we go. Nice and simple.
So no periods or anything, but just egradcliff.com. The book that's going to come after this next year, it's going to focus on Ronan, and it's going to be set in the White City and No Man's Land. Perfect. Which is it's going to be a very different world than the Maze, which is where Ninian's story in The Last Prince takes place. We probably won't see much character overlap, but since Ronan did grow up in the Maze, we'll probably reflect back on some.
Do you have a title for the next book?
I don't. I'm so bad at making titles. I swear.
Book
3.
Can I just ask where your inspiration for, I guess, these characters and even stories at times come from? Do you have many books that you sort of look back on and think, really inspired you, or is there TV or film that you actually get into that is really a driving force for your imagination?
Yeah, so I'd say that there's definitely books that influence how I see the world and thus how I write. those are mostly books that are very detail oriented, even if they're nonfiction. So like A Pilgrim at Tinker Creek by Annie Dillard. It's nonfiction. It details her experience like living in the mountains and living in the forest and all that. But the way she sees the world was very influential for how I started looking at things and therefore how I started writing. In terms of the more character-based stuff, Merlin, the BBC show Merlin. Oh my God, my childhood, that show, praise, it's so good.
Wow.
As a full adult right now, I still go back sometimes. Man, this is great.
We've got another good question in from Justin on the chat, and he's asked, are there any audiobooks in the future?
Ultimately, yes. Trying to, my business partner and I have been trying to figure out, how best to prioritize our releases. Excuse me. Just especially given how weird the current, work climate has been with COVID and everything. So ultimately, yes, we will be having audiobooks, but it might be a little bit. So please bear with us.
Would you be tempted to voice them yourself, or would you be tempted to get a voice actor in?
I think I would have to hire somebody. I don't think I could do it myself.
Do you know what? I actually tried to do my own going back a while, and it started off pretty well. And I thought, do you know what? This could be something I can do, until I got to actually have to voice characters. And then things really went out the window, so perhaps sometimes it is worth going to the professionals for. Just as I've got that in my mind, because I thought about this earlier and I nearly forgot the question. Your covers are very
striking.
Thank you, Chris. Good word. So do you have a favorite of the two? And did you have much input on them?
Yes. So I have to say my favorite is For the Last Prince. I think it's got just those really bold colors. It's very dynamic. I worked with Ms. Michaela Alcaino, marvelously talented. I'm lucky to have been able to partner with her. So I do have a lot of input in terms of like, I give some themes, some general, some vibes that I want to kind of hit on, especially, the symbolism that will eventually be apparent in the book. And then she'll come back with a couple different versions. I'll say, "Ooh, I really like this and this, not so much this, but can we like mix some things?" And it's just a very like back and forth process, especially working with someone who's both a genius and very flexible.
You almost sang that then. It almost came out as a song.
Did I?
This and this, I like this one. Very good. No, it does. It's a fantastic cover, and you can really see what you mean. It looks like a movie poster. It's just very there in a subtle way. Chris is looking directly at it right now, and it's fantastic. Yeah, it's a good job. So you mentioned that the titles that you really struggle writing or naming your books. So why do you think that's such a struggle, and how did you come up with the names if that was such a struggle?
I will be completely honest, naming things is just, I'm not good at it. I cannot figure out why. I've tried so very hard. Naming characters is fine because then I can really match like personality to name. But naming books, I have to figure out, public appeal. I have to figure out what sounds good, matches the story, doesn't give too much away, although The Hidden King is a total spoiler. So for that, it's just not a skill set that I really have. The Hidden King was actually suggested by my cover artist, and The Last Prince was suggested by my mother. So, yeah.
Nice. Did you have any alternative titles before you set on The Hidden King and The Last Prince? I
had some titles that I would refer to it as in my head, but I couldn't pronounce them. I picked some random, like, old Celtic name and just was like, yeah, that I can refer to that in my head. And then I showed it to someone and they're like, we don't know what word this is. Me neither.
What about you, Chris? Have you changed the name at all for your book? Has it always been the same?
Yeah, it's always been the same. The title with me came first, so I couldn't really change it. Yeah.
See, I'm in your court that I changed. Mine used to be called something crazy. Not it wasn't called something crazy.
Something crazy.
Yeah, but
Happened in the woods.
It definitely changed. So I don't think I ever thought of it in the sense that you have, where you thought about appeal and all of that stuff. So maybe I really should have, but I haven't. So I don't know. I'll have to find a friend that I can text, and hopefully they can give me some advice.
That Twinkle Star comment, by the way, she said she can't wait for this book. Like, look, can't wait for it. You don't need to wait. It's out now, isn't it?
It's out today.
It is out.
It is.
We had a pre-order set up on Amazon for the ebook, but you couldn't pre-order the paperback. But now the paperback is released. It is live on Amazon. I'm very excited. Kind of nervous, but mostly stoked.
So at what point today did that go out live?
Amazon was actually being weird and stressful. So yesterday, we had everything set up, ready to go. And then it said, hey, what if we deleted everything that you've uploaded? So we had to re-upload everything at the last minute. So I'm not 100% sure the time it went live, but we checked and kept checking, and finally it was up.
Nice.
What a nightmare. That's a process. I'm going to go down the same road next Friday. So if you've got any advice or tips this week that you find, please message me and let me know. But also, honestly, I really hope that it does very, very well. And like you said, it is a very tricky time or strange time that we're in. So it's going to be exciting and intriguing at the same time. Justin's back with another question. It's not a question. It's more of a statement. He built his entire world around his title. So, Chris, is that something that you kind of did, or is that something similar?
What, build a world around a title?
Yeah, you said you had the title first. So, is that the same sort of process you went with, or?
Yeah, it was. I mean, my title is Death Just Grin and Bear It, and it was just about people dying. So, and then Jack obviously coming to see what those people dying were saying after they died. So yeah, it kind of, I always knew I wanted to set it in the real world, because I read a lot of writing books, and they said, write what you know and stuff like that. And thinking of screen, like obviously EJ Radcliff has got like a really well built world, which is fantastic. And Halo Scott, for example, she's on the writing community quite a lot. She's got a really good like imagination for world building. But I thought practically, when I move it over to a script, it needs to be like a living room or a bathroom, or something that's really low budget and could possibly get done. So I did have that in mind as well. So yeah.
Okay.
If that answers the question.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, I was going to say, can we do some traditional writing community chat show questions?
You, by all means, Chris, you go for it. It's your first week back off your little time away, and you can ask whatever you want.
Yeah, because I've missed these, and these are really quite fun as well. So, one of the questions is, if you could rewrite the ending to any novel, which novel would it be and why?
I gave this question a lot of thought, and it was tricky. I'd say the only thing that I was really certain about was that I would really love to change the ending of every single Song of Ice and Fire novel. Yeah, not because they're bad, but just because they were so upsetting.
And what would you do? How would you change them and make them different?
Well, I'm a sucker for a happy ending, so I think I'd change everything.
Okay.
No tea or shade or anything.
Yeah.
So along the same lines as that question is the question that if you were able to take any character, fictional, just disappeared a minute, fictional character through literature or TV, film, entertainment at all, who would you take? Or who would you pick and why? So this question I kind of interpreted as like, if I wanted to, who would I write fan fiction of? A valid question, a fun question.
We think so.
Well, but then you're sort of taking a character and figuring out how to write them. It's great practice if you want to get good at character writing, and it's a lot of fun because you don't have to go through the work of character building. You just get to try your hand at putting them in different situations. I'm personally really fond of Simon Snow and Baz Trannis Basilton Grimpitch. There we go. From Rainbow Rowell's Carry On Simon series. Just because they're so different from characters that I write, that I would have a lot of fun, I think, borrowing them, playing with them in different situations, and just figuring out how they would react, because it's never the way I expect that, I would react or someone I know would react.
Okay.
Yeah. So in talking about genres then, obviously you write, would you label it fantasy?
Yeah.
Predominantly?
Yeah, I'd say it's fantasy.
Yeah.
It's not so, huge scale as a lot of fantasy, but it's got some fairies in there. So yeah.
Yeah. So you're a fantasy writer at the moment then. Are you tempted to venture into anything else?
I've always wanted to try historical fiction just because I love the research part. God, I love research and editing. Who am I? But I think that, finding the balance between the fantastical ability to wish fulfill and the real world issues of using writing to sort of work through emotion or address issues or just generally get your thoughts out. I don't think I would ever stray from fiction, but I would definitely be willing to try some other genres within that big one.
Do you have a figure from history in mind that you would like to have a little crack at?
Not a figure, but an era. I've always been interested in the Victorian era because it's insane. And completely farther back, the pre-medieval world is very interesting to me. A lot of, almost bordering on archaeological stuff, like Neolithic, slightly forward. That's always been fascinating. And I don't really know how I would write that, because the whole point of prehistory is that you don't know much about it, but I think it'd be a lot of fun. What book is it? I think it's The Princes of Ireland did a good job of going through history. I think that's what it's called.
And you said before about doing a lot of drawing when you were writing. Have you ever been tempted to whack those drawings in your books?
It's crossed my mind, and then I realized, wait a minute, I really shouldn't do that.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at your awesome question in there, Chris. I just fancy whacking those pictures in your books. I love the question, and it was a great pickup of the conversation.
I did draw the map. I did draw the map in the beginning of The Last Prince. For the first one, I hired someone, and then I thought, well, wait a minute. I've been working really hard on exploring this new skill set. I might as well give it a go. Yeah. So I drew it, bounced off a couple of people. They said, yeah, that's good. And then we put it in there.
Bro.
Okay. Let's ask some more off-topic questions. Chris, do you fancy that?
Yeah, definitely.
I've got a newish one, I guess. And this was, if you watch the show Friday, if this is coming up, and Laura Kayowet is on the show Friday, and I always mess the name up. I asked her for a question that we could use on the show, and someone asked her a question that I think was kind of relevant, so we'll use it. And do you prefer Elvis or the Beatles?
True confession, I don't really like either of them, but I think if I had to choose, I'd say the Beatles.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, sorry, Emma.
If we're going on acting ability, then definitely Elvis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we're going on number of songs that I really actually enjoy listening to, then I can say the Beatles.
Yeah, I watched Yesterday recently. And
Thoughts?
that. I quite enjoyed it, but only because of the songs. Yeah. I didn't like the Ed Sheeran bit.
As someone who people like ourselves who write stories, I thought that was so lacking, and it was purely just the Beatles fan base thought that that'll get the story through, and I just thought it was so lacking in the story. There's no character character arc and all that. It just wasn't there. So I was quite disappointed in that.
It was good for the songs though, because it reinvigorated my sort of. They went back into my playlist and stuff, so that was good.
Yeah.
Worth watching just for that.
Yeah. Cool.
Fantastic. Give us another one, Chris.
Along the lines of that, we've got the old classics. I mean, are you a fan of the pineapple on pizza?
I am. Yeah, I am. It's sweet. You can do sweet and savory. That's a thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yes. Straight back into it, Chrissy.
pineapple and sausage is really good because then it's salty and it's sweet and it's just wonderful. Horrible for you. Delicious. I love it.
Pizzas are fantastically healthy. Who told you they're horrible?
Oh my God, tomato sauce is a vegetable. And if you put pineapple on it, that's a fruit. It's
exactly.
fine.
It's full of health, vitamins, and all that stuff. I missed when this comment came in. Yay, fairies.
Oh,
Are we talking about fairies?
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's fairies in the... Yeah.
Oh, I missed that. Yeah, classic me. Apologies. I'm just trying to think of other random
That was ever a really bad insult if we hadn't mentioned fairies.
No, I'm just very forgetful. Oh, can't wait for that one. Book 3.
Oh, that makes more sense, Twinkle Star.
Well, if that would be a very big fan of the book then.
Yeah.
So, musical. I know you messaged the show before, way back when. I think it was like literally around our first show or so. That you mentioned that you liked the song at the end of the. I'm hoping this was you. I can't remember. I'm sure it was you. Yeah, you mentioned.
Just nod if it wasn't. Just yeah, that was totally me.
So a message that you liked the song at the end of the show, and big fan. That you basically liked the song at the end of the show and asked me what it was, which I can't remember. But yeah, so you're into music quite a lot. Do you have specific music on your playlist that you listen to when you write, or do you can or can't you write when you listen to music when you're writing?
It really depends on my mood. So I am a heathen. I pretty much just play out of the liked songs on my Spotify playlist, which means that I have like rappers right next to Beethoven. And it's kind of eclectic. I don't usually write to that, but I do just listen to it, like if I'm in the car, because I love, the spice of life. We love the variety. It's very engaging. But when I'm writing, I like to have the music in the background to drown out my other thoughts, but I don't want to have to think about it. So I usually either pick a movie soundtrack. Movie soundtracks are great. Or I gotta say, I love the Chronicles of Narnia soundtrack and the Avatar soundtrack. So those are high quality. Ooh, also How to Train Your Dragon. That one has a phenomenal soundtrack. Movie. I'm just gonna say it. But yeah, so I do a soundtrack, or I pick a song that's either like choral or orchestral, and I literally put it on repeat for like 3 hours. Because that way it fades into the background. Like I know it so well by that point, I don't have to think about it.
Amazing. That is good. I'm exactly the same. I have the same playlist, but it's something that I know very well, but it doesn't distract. It's there, but it doesn't distract, and you've got to have that sort of attention to your writing. Otherwise, who knows what can come out of that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I got a question based off of yesterday. So obviously in yesterday, the concept of it and the idea of it is that the whole world shuts down and people don't remember the Beatles. So if you could banish a book into yesterday that we would never see the light of day, and we would never know what it was, which book would that be and why?
Atlas Shrugged. I hate that book. Just on first of all, I think the writing's boring. And also just on a philosophical level, I don't think that being selfish all the time is the best way to make the world go round. So I just really objected to that book. And I think I held a book burning with one of my friends.
Oh, nice. Classic book burning.
It was a horrible book.
As someone that's is a keen drawer, if you're in a position, hopefully this will never happen, but in a fictional world, it said you have to draw something amazing, or else, what would you draw? What would you go to? Think this will blow their mind.
Well, I'm way better at drawing people than landscapes, and way better at drawing faces than bodies. So I'd probably just draw like a bust and then really detail it out. Oh, hi, cat. Would you like to meet my cat?
Okay.
Right, she just wanted
you instantly turned into a Bond villain then.
Yes.
Especially when the cat ran away.
The chase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she wanted to play with my pant legs. I have like the nice loose pant legs that she really likes playing with, but she didn't want to be touched. Can't be helped.
What's the cat's name?
Sushi. Her name is Sushi. Because
great name for a cat. Love it.
She does a funny thing where she rolls up into a ball and then rolls. So she's a sushi roll, and yeah.
Fantastic. Love it.
Brilliant.
Have you ever put a pet in, a pet animal in your books?
I don't think so. I
What
don't
are you
think.
laughing at, Chris?
I just imagine that line of questioning going so different.
Well, do you know what? I've actually put this in my sequel. This is kind of hilarious. It could be classed as terrible. I don't know. Is a dog called Dale. And now there's a big reason why there's a dog called Dale. It's because my teenage boy, he said, "I bet you can't put a dog called Dale in there." So I put a dog called Dale in my book.
Impressive.
Yeah, why not? It's a bit of fun.
Like it.
Go for it. Yeah.
It's Dale. So do you have any favorite TV programs or films?
Yeah, I really like House.
Okay. With I don't remember his name from Blackadder.
Hugh Laurie.
Hugh
Yeah.
Laurie, that's the one. Yes. Who also plays jazz music.
He does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really like House. I'm still hooked on Merlin and will be until the day I die. Criminal Minds, Inuyasha, the anime.
Okay.
And honestly, one of my friends recommended it, and I just started watching Voltron. The children's show about giant space stuff. It's goofy. I actually really like it because sometimes you just need, the world is a very serious place, and
Yeah,
sometimes
definitely.
you just need to watch a children's show of giant space monsters fighting other giant space monsters.
Amazing. Go on, Chris.
Another question that we ask on the show is if you could write a novel or have a little project going with anyone from within the writing community, who would you pick and why?
Ooh, well, that's a hard question. That is a hard question. There's so many people who are just very brilliant people, and it would be a privilege to work with any number of them. At the same time, I'm thinking about this so literally. I've never done a collaboration project with another person, and I just don't know how that would work, schedule-wise, logistics-wise, and I know I'm thinking about this like too seriously, but gosh, there's just so many people. I mean, I've connected with so many amazing authors on social media, in person, just, going to events and things. And it's such a big supportive community.
Who is your favorite author of all time?
Favorite author of all time? Oh God. See, I should have expected a question like this. It's such a basic question, but here we are.
We're all about the basic questions.
Probably. Oh heck.
Or just throw us one that you really like. It doesn't have to be the favorite.
All right. Well, I really like C.S. Lewis.
Okay.
Just, and I know he's sort of a children's author, but I like how he uses simple literary strategies to convey rather more complex, world building sort of things. And the fact that he is a children's author in the most part, just makes that more impressive. If you're appealing to children, that's something I personally could never do. You're appealing to children, and yet you're talking about larger issues, which is just impressive. So
if he was to approach you and say, look, let's write a book together, but you write the book and I will edit it, how would you feel about that?
Oh boy. I mean, I'd say yes, but I would feel so profoundly inadequate. At the same time, I'm just imagining how much I could grow from an experience like that.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking you probably cringe at the fact that you couldn't edit the book because you love doing it so much. But
yeah, there would be that too.
Yeah.
I'd rather have it be the other way around, but I also wouldn't feel worthy to edit those words.
Okay, we're coming up to an hour now, which means we'll have to wrap up soon. But before we do, I'd like to do something. I'd like to announce a new writing community member because we haven't done it for a couple of weeks. and it's just someone who's on Twitter, part of the writing community, and they're fairly new on Twitter. So that person is Carol Applewood, and I finally picked someone on Twitter with a name I can pronounce, at Carol Applewood. So plague her with gifts of. So E.G. Radcliffe, what can we plague Carol Applewood? What can we plague her Twitter with? What gifts?
Frogs.
Frogs. I love that. So anyone who's watching this show at any time, if you're watching this next week, I don't care, at Carol Applewood, send her a frog, and no explanation needed. And if she hasn't watched this, then hilarious. Just don't sue us, please, and brilliant. So please do that.
Brilliant. So before we go, can you tell us, one, what we're expecting to see from you in the future and release dates and stuff like that, and any final messages you want your fans and your readership to know?
Well, so The Last Prince obviously came out today. Next year, probably around this time, will be book 3. I actually have a new series in the works that I'm going to start dealing with after that I'm really excited about. In terms of a final message, I guess just thank you. I mean, everyone, you guys, everyone on social media, everyone I've connected with has been an empowering part of this journey. And I really would not be here at all without you guys. So I really appreciate it. I thank you so much.
Yeah, that's for you, Twinkle Star. You're big fan, you. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm so happy to see Mr. Hooley back next to me. That's a relief to see him back, and I kind of feel like I should be wearing my glasses today because I'm the odd one out. And
yeah,
you have very similar glasses on, you two.
Mine are Harry Potter round ones.
Yeah, they're slightly straight at the top there. Okay, so thank you so much for coming on, and I honestly I hope your book has absolutely great success, and it does really well. And if you ever need any more help or prompting with it, please send it our way, and we'll promote it as best we can for you.
Yeah, same time next year we can do book 3.
Wonderful.
Happy days.
Amazing. Yes. Cool. Right, thank you very much, and thank you to you guys that are watching. Please comment, please leave us some feedback, please share the show, and your support is always welcome as well. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow night for Laura Coyote, I think.
She's only a Hollywood actress.
I know. I even asked her before we went on air. I said, please tell me your name because I'll get it wrong. She told me. I pressed record. Then I said it wrong. I was like, well, you know what? Whatever. So thank you so much. And tune into that tomorrow. And we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.